From the Cronkite studios in downtown Phoenix, this is Cronkite News.
Arizona students arrested and military service members pleading for protection in a massive push for Congress to take action on the DREAM Act. We have team coverage from Washington.
Honoring the Great War will take you to the groundbreaking for a long-awaited World War I memorial in the nation's capital.
And Ford taking driving classes to the extreme. Why teens were encouraged to speed, all in the name of safety.
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Lysandra Marquez.
And I'm Blakely McHugh. Thank you for joining us. Capitol Hill was buzzing today with protesters and lawmakers from both sides of the aisle calling for Congress to take action for DACA recipients.
Their protection from deportation could start to run out in March. Dozens of Arizonans were among the hundreds who descended on Washington today to demand action on the DREAM Act. And one Arizonan was among the 15 protesters arrested by U.S. Capitol Police during the rally. Protesters packed the lobby of the Hart Senate office building and lined the balconies, their chants ringing off the marble walls. 15 protesters were arrested for obstruction, among other charges.
Lawmakers, including Arizona Congressman Ruben Gallego, also took up the cause of a different group of DACA recipients.
The ones who wear the uniforms of the U.S. Armed Services. Cronkite News reporter Fraser Allen Bass continues our team coverage.
It is really stupid to kick out or not allow qualified patriotic individuals to serve in the military, especially because some of them have important skills, such as foreign language skills, that sometimes native-born Americans simply do not.
Skills like fluency in Punjabi. It was that special ability that allowed Harminder Sani, a DACA recipient from Queens, New York, to enlist in the Army. He says the uncertain future of DACA makes this Veterans Day feel a bit different for people like him.
We're part of this country, and we want to serve for a long time, so this day is going to be very special.
Saini was able to enlist through a special program that accepts non-citizens, including DACA recipients, who have special skills like medical training or fluency in select foreign languages. Lawmakers at the event called for a vote on the bipartisan DREAM Act to make sure that service members like Sani would be able to serve in the long term. In the meantime, Sani says he will continue to serve and wait for Congress to act.
Hopefully it passes soon, helps everyone, helps us DACAs, helps people in the military, and hopefully it gets passed soon, so we're hopeful.
In Washington, Fraser Allen Best, Cronkite News.
Nearly 100 years since the end of World War I, those who fought in the Great War are finally getting a national memorial to their service.
Cronkite News reporter Trevor Fay was at the groundbreaking this morning in Washington's Pershing Park.
The veterans who served in the Great War are all gone now, but their nation today remembers their service.
While time has taken all of the World War I veterans from us, those of us who live in a free society, we are their living legacy.
This day has been a long time coming. National memorials to the Vietnam and Korean Wars and World War II were already well established when today's groundbreaking took place, 100 years after the U.S. entered the fight. The $50 million memorial will be built in Pershing Park, 1 block from the White House and with a commanding view of the Capitol.
This is America's memorial, and I hope all Americans join those of us here today in the centennial of the Great War to make this possible.
It will be a contemplative, park-like setting taking up much of a city block, a place for people to reflect, like the descendants of the more than 11,000 Arizonans who fought in that war.
It's wonderful that Arizonans will now have a place to be able to come here and recognize their family members who took part of the Great War.
Veteran Terry Hamby closed the ceremony by brushing off his drill sergeant voice to address the cadets who handed ceremonial shovels to the dignitaries here.
General Milley, as an American soldier and a former drill sergeant, may I have permission to post the shovelers? Shovelers, post!
The World War I Centennial Commission says the memorial is part of its mission to educate Americans about the forgotten war and celebrate the memory of those who served.
That's the country that we live in. That's the people that we are today that want to remember and recognize and have a place to honor them. And I think it's an amazing thing. Pride is what comes in, is oozing out of our hearts today.
The memorial is scheduled to be dedicated a year from now, the 100th anniversary of the Great War's end. In Washington, Trevor Fay, Cronkite News.
And one day before the country celebrates Veterans Day, Representative Tom O'Halloran is introducing a bill that could help build new nursing homes for servicemen in Arizona. For many veterans, the current state facilities in Tucson and Phoenix are simply too far away. The Fairness for Rural Veterans Act would make it easier for rural communities to compete for federal funding to build those long-term care facilities.
Arizonans got rid of nearly 6 tons of prescription drugs last month as part of the DEA's National Take Back event. They collected about 2,000 more pounds than they did in April, and this was the 4th highest collection since the program began. DEA officials say this shows Arizona's dedication to fighting the opioid epidemic. Since the start of the program, more than 66 tons of potentially addictive drugs have been collected.
Spinning out a Mustang, texting while driving, and wearing impairment goggles while driving. These are just some of the paces teen drivers are being put through. Reporter Sydney Eisenberg is live in downtown Phoenix with a look at how these exercises are helping young drivers.
The Ford Driving Skills for Life program is making a stop here in Phoenix during its national tour. And while spinning out a Mustang may be fun for teenagers, it actually gives them valuable experience they may have only gotten if they were involved in an accident.
Connie Chastain is a mother of 3 boys, 2 of whom are able to drive. She says she has already experienced what many parents of driving teens fear.
Loss of control during a rainstorm. It's something we don't get very often here, so inexperience came into play. He didn't, the whole braking system, and he locked up the brakes. Everyone was fine, but we did come and do this afterwards. So that was a driving force.
At the time, Chastain brought her oldest son to the Ford Driving Skills for Life driving program. Now that her middle son is licensed to drive, she's brought him to the program too.
Statistics show that 60% of vehicle crashes of newly licensed drivers are due to inexperience. So that's what we're doing. We're providing some experience to newly licensed drivers.
Now out here on the course, students can learn everything from what it's like to drive impaired using driver impairment goggles to even skid recovery in one of these 2015 Mustangs.
The Ford Driving Skills for Life program is putting teens behind the wheel with a professional driving instructor.
Don't hit none of my little orange people.
On a closed course at the Phoenix Fire Training Academy. All 4 of the hands-on activities give teen drivers knowledge in vehicle handling, hazard recognition, speed and space management, and distracted or impaired driving.
Do better this time.
All factors that typically lead to accidents among young drivers. Chastain says she is happy someone is able to give her newly licensed drivers some much-needed experience.
No matter how much you're out with them for that 6 months they have their permit, there's just, they don't get enough experience in to make you feel, you know, like great.
The program plans to help approximately 1,000 teen drivers during its stop in Phoenix.
Now the Ford Driving for Life skills, will be located at the Phoenix Fire Training Academy through November 12th. Newly licensed teens as well as their parents are invited to attend. Live in Phoenix, Sydney Eisenberg, Cronkite News.
People who are visually impaired have traditionally turned to Braille in order to keep reading.
But technology is starting to change that. Coming up on Cronkite News, how libraries are catering to the visually impaired by going digital.
Plus, a new program is trying to identify dyslexia earlier, how this pilot program is changing early childhood education.
I'm Judy Woodruff, anchor and managing editor of the PBS NewsHour. The journalists of tomorrow face a fast-changing media landscape, but quality news remains vitally important to our communities, our country, and our world. At ASU's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication, students learn solid, reliable reporting, holding the powerful accountable, and rebuilding the public's trust. The Cronkite School and Arizona PBS, preparing the next generation for a stronger future of journalism.
Children of planet Earth.
Human beings are a curious bunch.
What are we going to see when we get really close?
Wow. Oh my God, absolutely spectacular.
We
are at a remarkable moment.
We're going farther than any exploration ever has.
Officially from 36, and he hooks it in. Arizona State wins. Keeping one deep, and it is caught. Jalen Strong. Do you believe it?
One school district has a new program to identify children who may have dyslexia as early as 4 or 5 years old. Cronkite News reporter Holly Bernstein went to Tempe to learn about the new program.
Arizona is the first state to implement a program of this kind. Over the next 3 years, select classrooms in the Kyrene School District will be working with students to see if an early diagnosis makes an impact.
I have a 12-year-old who I was noticing challenges first and second grade, but again, it's difficult to say that this is dyslexia unless you do some neurological testing.
Bernadette Coggins, mother of 7th grader Zane, says it would have been easier to identify his struggles if he'd been diagnosed at a younger age.
But if he had been given the opportunity to do some of these early interventions like this preschool pilot that we're starting, we would have been able to identify that he had some very specific struggles.
Coggins worked alongside community members in the Kyrene School District to start the Dyslexia Preschool Pilot Program, the first program of its kind in the United States to begin identifying dyslexia in preschool kids.
There'll be a lot of phonetic exercises, there'll be a lot of eye contact, moving your lips and learning how to speak correctly.
Earlier this year, Representative Jill Norgaard, who helped facilitate the program, introduced and got passed legislation to create a dyslexia handbook.
The handbook has identifications of if your student or child exhibits these conditions, he or she may have dyslexia.
Kyrene's Director of Exceptional Student Services, Sandra Lane, says some of the information in the handbook is being used to guide the program, and that the Burton Family Foundation is providing a grant to cover the costs.
For us to implement interventions for preschool age students, as well as training for teachers and some supplies for the classrooms.
Coggins says she thinks starting in preschool will help parents and teachers identify signs of dyslexia right away.
Any of the work that they're getting at this earlier stage is only going to help them.
Representative Norgaard says once the program starts, they expect to receive more resources that will help them expand. The pilot program is expected to begin this January. In the Broadcast Center, Holly Bernstein, Cronkite News.
Books in Braille are not as popular as they used to be for the thousands of visually impaired residents here in Arizona. Now, many of the patrons are going digital. I went to a library in Phoenix that caters to this community to see the changes. Digital book players, flash drives, and DVDs line the shelves of this library. The Arizona State Braille and Talking Book Library serves 9,000 patrons, both the visually impaired and physically limited.
So often people think when they become blind, their life is over. And that's simply not the case. And the reading service just allows a person to continue an activity that was a part of their life before losing their eyesight.
Run, commanded Mrs. Arable, taking...
About 2,000 books, films, magazines come in each day. They then get sorted, and another 2,000 go out to residents across Arizona. The patrons range in age from 4 to 106, but library officials say many of the younger patrons are embracing new technology and don't receive the physical collections anymore.
We have people that read 2 books a day. We have people that read 2 books a month. We have people that read none of our books and only get magazines and newspapers. And we have people that doesn't do any of that, and they only download all their materials through our library's BARD site.
The library offers a program called BARD, a national program that allows patrons to download the material straight to their devices.
Right now I have 180 books on my thumb drive.
And although Christine Tuttle says some patrons find the digital system daunting, library employees and volunteers only make audio versions if patrons show enough demand for them. As part of the National Library Service, every state is equipped with a library for the visually impaired and physically limited. Christine Tuttle says it's available to anyone who can't read standard print, hold a book, or turn pages. It's been 7 weeks since Hurricane Maria made landfall in Puerto Rico.
And thousands of people are still without power and clean water. Coming up on Cronkite News, how Arizona has become a safe haven for Puerto Rican family after Maria devastated their island.
We're going to have beautiful temperatures here in Phoenix this weekend. Stay tuned for your full 7-day forecast.
I'm Ted Simons, host and managing editor of Arizona Horizon. Join us each weekday at 5:30 and 10 as we bring you the top newsmakers who impact the state. We cover the stories in depth that shape and affect our local communities, and we take the time to ensure that all voices are equally heard. For more than 30 years, Arizona Horizon has been your voice and your source for what matters most, right here on Arizona PBS.
Fridays, it's at Cronkite News, your social sharing connection where you choose the news. Facebook likes and shares, tweets, retweets, and favorites. YouTube views and subscriptions. We're watching you watch us. From our digital home at cronkitenews.azpbs.org to your television, web browser, or mobile device. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Then join us for at Cronkite News, our weekly refresh, each Friday at 5 on Arizona PBS.
It's been almost 2 months since Hurricane Maria made landfall in Puerto Rico. Since then, thousands have been without power, water, and shelter. Puerto Rican residents are now relocating to the mainland, facing a very uncertain future. Cronkite News reporter Courtney Malley sat down with Hurricane Maria survivors who now find themselves calling the valley home.
The Cruz Torres family came to Fountain Hills just over a week ago after their home was destroyed by crashing power lines. Now they're staying here with their daughter. The last couple of months have been traumatic for the family, and one of the first things they had to face with communications down was not knowing if their loved ones were even alive.
Oh my God. Dear God, I told my husband, what are we going to do now?
While those in Puerto Rico wondered where food and clean water would come from each day, families here on the mainland had their worries too.
Yeah, it was hard. It was hard. I think everybody who is here, who has family in Puerto Rico, kind of felt the same way. We all felt like, the uncertainty and the frustration and the inability to get through the telephone.
81-year-old Maria Torres has survived multiple hurricanes in her lifetime, but this one, she says, this one was the worst of all.
Ay, Dios mío, Señor. Dear God, this was such a sad thing, so sad. I've lived through Hurricane John, Hugo, Federico, Santa Clara, but this one took us. Everything was shaking, the houses were shaking. I told my husband, we're gonna have to go. We're gonna have to go with Maria.
But they didn't go. They survived, and now they're here in Arizona, living a life they never thought they would, but they're not alone. It's estimated 60 to 75,000 Puerto Ricans came to the mainland in the 3 weeks right after the devastating storm hit in late September.
So unfortunately, what we will see is more families leaving the island, a decrease in the population, which will result on worse economic outlook.
These families are leaving because 57% of the island still doesn't have electricity and 12% don't have running water.
I had a big drum on the balcony and we drank water from there. I cooked from there. That's what we used to bathe and to fill our toilets. At one point, I felt the water was making me sick.
People will have to leave. Right? So if there's no money to repair the schools, if there's not enough money to repair the electrical grid, the infrastructure, that's just compounding what was happening.
The Cruz Torres family remains hopeful they'll get through this, saying they want to go back home one day. But for now, Arizona is home.
If there's something we are, is that we're resilient and we're very creative, and it's been wonderful to see how the community has, in spite of all of this, it has come together.
But Puerto Rico is still struggling. As of this morning, only 18% of the island has power due to a major outage. The U.S. government says more than 140,000 Puerto Ricans have fled so far, relocating in the continental United States. That number is expected to rise. Courtney Malley, Cronkite News.
The Cardinals are getting ready to face the Seahawks tonight for Thursday night football.
And to enjoy the beautiful weather we've been having, the roof at the University of Phoenix Stadium will be open during the game. Holly, what kind of weather can we expect?
Fans can expect a bit cooler temperatures if they are planning on going to this game later tonight. Kickoff is set for 6:25, and just around that time, we are going to be dropped below 80 degrees. We're going to be at 79 at that time. So temperatures are going to continue to go down throughout the game, so make sure to bring a light jacket if you are planning on going to that game later tonight. Around the state of Arizona, we're seeing temperatures at 66 in Show Low, 59 degrees in Flagstaff, and 63 degrees in the Grand Canyon. Looking around our valley, we have temperatures in the 80s still. Glendale at 84 degrees, Scottsdale at 83, and Mesa at 82 degrees. Going into our Veterans Day weekend, we are going to see temperatures in the 80s. On Saturday, we are going to have a high of 84 degrees. So if you're planning to be outdoors or going to any of the parades that will be going on, make sure to bring some sunscreen and plan ahead. Going into our week, Monday is going to be our warmest day at 87 degrees, and these temperatures are going to gradually go down as we go throughout the week. For Cronkite Weather, I'm Holly Bach.
And if you're looking for something else to do this weekend, the Can-Am 500 is heading to Phoenix Raceway on Sunday. This weekend's race will be the last one before the track officially changes its name. But that's not the only thing that's changing. Reporter Kyle Wilcox caught up with NASCAR legend Rusty Wallace to find out how renovations could improve the racing experience.
Phoenix Raceway will be a very different track in 2018. Not only will it have a new name, ISM Raceway, the layout and fan experience will be unlike anything in its history. New grandstands, luxury suites, and a bar and grill are all under construction.
The fans have supported NASCAR for so long now. They deserve this. And so this is going to be one of the most modern facilities in all of motor racing.
One of the central parts of the renovation, an infield fan zone, will bring fans closer to the action and provide access to the driver garages.
I like to say it's sort of like Disneyland meets NASCAR, and it'll really give the fans an opportunity to step behind the curtain, so to speak, and really see kind of an insider's view to what happens with the race teams.
Avondale Mayor Kenneth Weiss is understandably excited about the improvements coming to the track that has called the city home for 53 years.
A city of 83,000 people, the economic impact is huge, not just from the sales tax revenue, but again, you're going to have 3 races a year, and the NASCAR races are going to bring 100,000 people to the city each time. How do you get that exposure except for a Super Bowl?
$178 million is what it costs for the redevelopment of Phoenix Raceway. The track has been under construction for several months now and is expected to be fully completed by November of 2018. The start-finish line will be moved into what is now Turn 2, which is also where the new grandstands are being built. The old grandstands along the straightaway will be demolished, and pit road will also be shifted over. Wallace thinks the relocation of the start-finish line will require drivers to change their race plans, which he says can make for a more interesting race.
Before, you would set up that pass off of turn 4, you know, if you were late into it and you knew the start-finish line was coming at you just straight down there just a little bit. Now, with it wrapped around in the different part of the racetrack, it's going to be a different approach.
Most of the heavy lifting on renovations like the infield fan zone, repositioning of pit road, and the new start-finish line will take place during the summer of 2018. In Avondale, Kyle Wilcox, Cronkite News.
For the first time in the United States, ancient Chinese musical instruments and artifacts are on display at the Musical Instrument Museum in Phoenix. Reporter Mia Atkins has a look at this unique exhibit before it opens to the public tomorrow.
9,000 years of history are on display at the Ancient Musical Treasures from Central China exhibition, Harmony from the Ancients Henan Museum. The Musical Instrument Museum in Phoenix is working with the Henan Museum in China to display these artifacts in America. Zhang Desai, deputy director of the Henan Museum, came to Phoenix for the opening of the exhibition. He spoke to me through a translator.
That's why they need those objects here to represent to American audience, because they want the American audience to know about not only the Chinese culture from the Henan, but also other part of China.
Guests who visit the museum are able to use these headsets to hear the sounds of the music from different periods throughout ancient Chinese history. Colin Pearson, curator of the exhibit, says guests will travel through 9,000 years of Chinese history.
People are going to be surprised and amazed at the variety of pieces and the beauty that they highlight and the way that it connects to even to the present day.
Some of the instruments included in the exhibit are the approximately 7,000 to 9,000 year old bone flute and a bell chime that is one of only 10 that still exist today. Desai says part of the exhibit's title includes the word harmony to represent the partnership between the two museums.
If you want to harmony, you have to have more than two sounds, and that's why this museum and Henan Museum work together, because it not only about this exhibition but also represents their friendship.
Staff at the Musical Instrument Museum urge people to come experience the exhibit soon, as it will only be around for 6 months. In Phoenix, Mia Atkins, Cronkite News.
Cronkite News is proud to be the news division of Arizona PBS. Here's what's coming up on Arizona Horizon and PBS NewsHour.
On the next Arizona Horizon, a new report shows that poverty is down in Arizona, but it's still higher than the national average. And we'll visit with Rusty Young from the legendary country rock band Polka.
I'm Judy Woodruff on the next NewsHour. Where's the beef? Making sense of the burger war brewing over the growing popularity of meat alternatives. That's Thursday on the PBS NewsHour.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks so much for joining us.
For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.